There are moments in life that change everything. Not the big moments you plan for, not the graduations, the promotions, the anniversaries you write down in calendars. No, I am talking about the moments that arrive without warning, the ones that show up on an ordinary Tuesday morning in an ordinary office, wearing ordinary clothes, the moments that split your entire life into two chapters, before and after. For me, that moment came on a Tuesday morning in November, in front of 43 coworkers in the middle of the open office floor, under those cold fluorescent lights that hum just loud enough to remind you they are always there. When my boss looked me dead in the eyes and said, "You're done. Pack your things. Security will escort you out." The room went silent. Not the kind of silence that follows a joke that didn't land. This was heavier, deeper, the kind of silence where you can hear the air conditioning humming, where you become suddenly aware of every single person around you. Their eyes, their breath, their discomfort. Some people looked away. Some looked at their laptops. A few looked directly at me with expressions I will never forget. I could hear my own heartbeat. Slow, steady, surprisingly calm, and in that moment, I did something nobody in that room expected. I smiled. Not a nervous smile, not a defeated smile, a knowing smile. Because here is what Marcus didn't know, what none of them knew. I had been quietly, carefully, methodically collecting evidence for 3 months. Every email, every document, every suspicious transaction, 67 pieces of evidence sitting in a folder on my personal drive. And the moment Marcus fired me in front of those 43 people, he handed me the one thing I had been waiting for, the reason to use all of it. This is my story. My name doesn't matter. Call me Daniel. I was 31 years old at the time, working as a senior account manager at a mid-sized marketing firm based in Chicago. We had about 200 employees, 3 floors, and the kind of office culture that looks great on a careers page but feels very different once you are actually inside it. Not glamorous, but I was genuinely good at what I did. Really good. I had hit every single quarterly target for 2 years straight. Not once did I miss a number. Not once did I deliver late. I knew my clients better than they knew themselves. I could walk into a room, read the energy, and close a deal that 3 other people had already failed to close. I mentored 3 junior employees who all went on to get promoted within 18 months. I stayed late without being asked. I came in early without anyone noticing. I sent follow-up emails at 11 p.m. because I genuinely cared about the work. I was not perfect, but I was dedicated, and I was proud of what I had built over those 2 years. And then Marcus arrived. Marcus was brought in as the new director of operations 18 months before all of this happened. He came from a larger agency in New York, or so he told everyone. He had the kind of resume that looked impressive on paper and the kind of personality that filled a room the moment he walked into it. Early 40s, always wore expensive watches, different one every week, the kind of guy who laughed a little too loud at his own jokes and expected everyone else to laugh too. The kind of guy who remembered your name after one meeting and made you feel, just for a moment, like you were the most important person in the room. He was magnetic. I will give him that. But from day one, something felt off. It was subtle at first. The kind of thing you notice but cannot quite name. He would take credit for his team's wins in front of upper management, casually, smoothly, in a way that was technically not a lie, but was absolutely not the truth. We closed the Henderson account when it was Sarah who had worked that account for 6 months straight. He would dismiss ideas in meetings, not aggressively. That would have been too obvious. He did it with a smile and a slight tilt of the head. Interesting thought, but let's move on. And then, 3 weeks later, the same idea would appear in a presentation. His presentation. He had this habit of making jokes that were never really jokes. Comments about people's hours, their output, their fit with the team, always wrapped in a laugh, always deniable. But he was charming, incredibly effortlessly charming, and HR loved him. Patricia, the HR director, practically glowed whenever he walked past her office. Leadership loved him. The CEO mentioned him by name in a company-wide email after his third month, praising his fresh energy and strategic vision. I watched all of this and I told myself, just stay in your lane, Daniel. Do your work. Keep your head down. Don't make enemies. That was my first mistake. Because people like Marcus, they don't leave you alone just because you don't bother them. They come for you anyway, especially when you are good at your job, especially when your success makes them look ordinary by comparison. It started small. It always does. About 4 months after Marcus arrived, he began reassigning my accounts. Not all of them, just the best ones. The ones I had spent months, sometimes years building. The ones where the clients asked for me by name. He reassigned them to a newer hire named Kevin. Kevin was a decent guy, pleasant, eager, showed up on time, but he had zero experience with these particular clients, zero understanding of the history, zero of the trust that I had spent so long building. When I asked Marcus why, he leaned back in his chair, gave me that smile and said, "We are redistributing workload for efficiency, Daniel. Nothing personal." Nothing personal. I nodded. I walked out. I went back to my desk and I stared at my screen for a long moment. Okay, I told myself, fine. Maybe there is a reason I am not seeing. Maybe this is just restructuring. Maybe this has nothing to do with me. I gave him the benefit of the doubt. That was my second mistake. Then came the performance review. 3 months before Marcus fired me, I had closed the Hartwell account. This was not a small deal. This was a $340,000 annual contract that I had been personally nurturing for 8 months. 8 months of calls, meetings, proposals, revisions, late nights and early mornings. 8 months of slowly, carefully building a relationship with a client who had rejected our firm twice before. I closed it. Me. Alone. Without any help from Marcus or anyone else on leadership. I walked into that quarterly performance review expecting acknowledgement, expecting at minimum a thank you, maybe a bonus conversation, maybe finally a path to the senior director role I had been quietly working toward. Instead, Marcus slid a paper across the table. Needs improvement? I stared at that paper for what felt like a full minute. My brain genuinely could not process what I was reading. "This has to be a mistake," I said. My voice was steady. I was proud of that. "No mistake," Marcus replied. He folded his hands on the table, calm, rehearsed. "Your communication with the broader team has been below expectations this quarter. There have been concerns raised." "What concerns?" I asked. "From who?" "I am not at liberty to share specifics. I just closed a $340,000 account." "And that is appreciated," he said, "but individual wins don't compensate for team dynamics issues." I asked for examples, specific, documented examples. He could not give me a single one. I left that meeting with the paper in my hand and sat in my car in the parking garage for 20 minutes, and then something shifted inside me. Not anger, not panic, clarity. That night, I made a decision that would change everything. I started keeping records. Every email Marcus sent me, saved and backed up. Every Slack message, screenshot and stored. Every meeting where he spoke over me, dismissed my input, or presented my work as a team effort, documented with dates and details. I created a folder on my personal Google Drive. I named it Just in Case. It seemed almost paranoid at the time. A small, quiet act of self-protection that I hoped I would never need. I had no idea what I was about to find. 3 weeks after that performance review, I was working late. It was around 9 p.m. The office was nearly empty. Just me, the cleaning crew, and the hum of the building settling into the night. I needed a budget spreadsheet from a shared drive folder. I was tired. I clicked the wrong file. It opened immediately. A contractor invoice. Clean, professional, formatted correctly. The vendor name at the top read Apex Creative Solutions. I had never heard of it. The invoice was for $14,000. Services rendered, strategic consulting and content development, approved and signed by Marcus. I almost closed it. I was tired. It was late. It was probably nothing. But something made me pause. I opened a new browser tab and searched for Apex Creative Solutions. Nothing. No website, no LinkedIn company page, no reviews, no social media presence, no news mentions, nothing. I went into our internal vendor database, the system that lists every approved contractor and supplier the company works with. Apex Creative Solutions was not listed. I cross-referenced the invoice date with our active project files, looking for any deliverable, any document, any report, any campaign asset that might correspond to the work described. Nothing. No project, no deliverable, no record of any strategic consulting or content development from this vendor during that period. My hands were shaking as I took a screenshot. I forwarded the file to my personal email. Then I deleted the forward from my sent folder and closed the shared drive. I sat there in that quiet office for a long moment, staring at the glow of my screen, and then I picked up my things and drove home. I did not sleep that night. Over the next 6 weeks, I went back to those shared drive folders carefully, methodically, never downloading anything directly, always screenshotting, always forwarding to my personal email and deleting the trail. I found 4 more invoices from Apex Creative Solutions, each one approved by Marcus, each one for a different amount: $8,000, $11,000, $16,000, $13,000, each one describing vague services: strategic consulting, brand advisory, content ideation, with no corresponding deliverables anywhere in our systems. Total across all 5 invoices, $62,000. $62,000 paid to a company that, as far as I could tell, did not actually exist. I sat with this information for days. I went back and checked again and again, convinced I was missing something. Convinced there had to be an explanation. There was none. I thought about going to HR, but Marcus had lunch with Patricia every single Friday. They had an easy, familiar rapport that made me deeply uncomfortable about what I was considering. Going to Patricia felt like going directly to Marcus. I thought about going to the CEO, but I was an account manager, 1 level above entry. Who was I exactly to walk into the CEO's office and accuse the director of operations of fraud? Without ironclad proof, I would be dismissed. Worse, I would be labeled a troublemaker, and Marcus would know immediately. So I kept collecting, quietly, patiently, waiting for the right moment. What I did not know, what I could not have predicted, was that Marcus was about to hand me that moment himself. It was a Tuesday, a regular, unremarkable Tuesday morning team meeting. 43 people in the room: account managers, creatives, analysts, coordinators, the usual weekly gathering. I had spent the previous 3 weeks developing a full campaign strategy for a major retail client we were pitching. I had worked on it nights and weekends. I had built the entire framework from scratch. Audience research, channel strategy, creative direction, budget allocation, projected ROI. I presented it that morning. 15 minutes, clean slides, confident delivery. The room responded well. People were nodding. Someone from the creative team said it was the strongest pitch framework they had seen for this client. Even a few people who rarely spoke up asked engaged follow-up questions. I felt good. For the first time in months, I felt like myself again. And then Marcus stood up. He waited until the energy in the room had settled, until the small side conversations had quieted. He had a talent for timing. I will always give him that. He cleared his throat. "Before we close out today," he said, his voice measured and calm, "I want to address something directly." I did not know yet that he was talking about me. "I have been reviewing the performance of our account management team over the past quarter," he continued, "and I have had to make a difficult decision regarding one of our team members." He paused, a long pause. "Daniel," he finally looked at me, "your contract with this company is being terminated, effective immediately. Please collect your personal belongings from your desk. Security will escort you out of the building." Silence. Complete, total, suffocating silence. I sat there for 3 full seconds without moving, without blinking, without breathing. I could feel every single pair of eyes in that room turning toward me. 42 people, all watching. Some with shock, some with confusion, one or two with the barely concealed look of people who had known this was coming. I looked at Marcus and I smiled. Not a polite smile, not a nervous smile, a real one. Because in that moment, everything became absolutely clear. Marcus had just made the biggest mistake of his career. My just-in-case folder had 67 documents in it, and he had just given me every reason in the world to use every single one. I stood up slowly. I straightened my jacket. I thanked the room, genuinely calmly, without a trace of bitterness in my voice. Several people looked deeply uncomfortable. Good. I walked to my desk, collected my laptop bag, my notebook, my coffee mug, and the small frame photo I kept beside my monitor. The security guard's name was Earl. I had chatted with Earl dozens of times over 2 years. About his daughter's soccer games, about the Cubs, about the best lunch spots within walking distance of the office. Earl walked beside me to the elevator. He looked more uncomfortable than I felt. "You doing okay?" he asked quietly, once the elevator doors closed. "Better than okay, Earl," I said, and I meant it. That afternoon, I sat at my kitchen table with my laptop, a legal pad, and a very large cup of coffee, and I got to work. I opened the just-in-case folder, 67 documents. I organized them into 5 categories. First, the fraudulent invoices, all 5 of them, with the invoice numbers, dates, approved amounts, and my documented evidence that no corresponding deliverables existed anywhere in company systems. Total, $62,000. Second, the email trail, 12 separate emails in which Marcus had forwarded my work, my proposals, my client analyses to senior leadership, presenting them as team outputs or, in 3 cases, as his own strategic thinking. I had the original timestamps, I had the version histories, the evidence was clean. Third, the Hartwell account documentation. Every email, every call log, every proposal draft showing my sole ownership of that account from first contact to signed contract. Alongside it, my needs improvement performance review dated 3 weeks after the contract was signed. Fourth, the meeting record, dates, times, and detailed notes from 11 separate meetings in which Marcus had dismissed, interrupted, or appropriated contributions from me and other team members. Where possible, I had corroborating Slack messages. Fifth, a timeline. A clean, chronological account of every relevant event from Marcus's arrival to the morning he fired me in front of the entire team. I opened a blank document and began assembling everything into a single, professionally formatted PDF. It took me 4 hours. When I finished, it was 31 pages long. I read it twice. I corrected 2 typos. I added a cover page with a simple professional title. Then I opened my email. I did not send it to Patricia in HR. I sent it directly to the CFO, whose email address I had from a client introduction 18 months earlier. I sent it to the CEO, and I sent it to the name and address of the company's external legal counsel, a firm whose details I had found on a compliance document in a shared folder. The subject line read, "Concerns regarding vendor fraud and hostile work environment. Documentation enclosed." I pressed send at 4:47 p.m., then I closed my laptop, made dinner, and went to bed. By 9 a.m. the following morning, I had 3 emails waiting for me. One from the CFO's executive assistant, asking if I was available for a call that afternoon. One from the CEO's assistant, asking if I could come in for a meeting later that week, and noting that my building access had been temporarily reactivated for that purpose. And one from a partner at the company's external legal firm, asking me to call at my earliest convenience. I sat at my kitchen table and read all 3 emails twice, then I made coffee. Marcus, meanwhile, had no idea any of this was happening. He went into the office that Wednesday morning the same way he always did. Confident, unhurried, expensive watch on his wrist. He probably expected a quiet week. He had just cleared out a problem employee. Things, from his perspective, were going well. He found out on a Thursday. I was not there to see it, but 2 former coworkers texted me within 20 minutes of each other. One said, "Are you watching this?" The other said, "Earl just walked Marcus out in front of the same 43 people." The formal investigation took 6 weeks. The findings were exactly what I had documented. And then some. Marcus was terminated for cause with immediate effect. No severance, no reference letter. The investigation into Apex Creative Solutions revealed what I had suspected but never fully confirmed. It was Marcus's own LLC, registered 18 months earlier, almost exactly when he had joined the company. He had been billing the company for consulting services that he himself was supposedly providing through a shell company, using an approval chain that only required his own sign-off below a certain dollar threshold. He had structured each invoice carefully to stay just under that threshold. $62,000 extracted over 14 months. Patricia in HR was placed on administrative leave pending a separate internal review into what she knew and when she knew it. 3 weeks after the investigation concluded, I received a formal letter from the company's legal team. It included a written apology from the CEO, an acknowledgement that my termination had been wrongful and retaliatory, and an offer to return to my position, with a pay increase and a formal adjustment to my performance record. I appreciated the letter. I did not take the offer, because 2 weeks before that letter arrived, I had accepted a position at another firm, a company that had reached out to me after hearing, through industry channels, about what had happened. They offered me a senior director title and a salary 40% higher than what I had been earning, with a manager who, in our very first meeting, looked me in the eyes and said, "We hire people, and then we trust them to do their jobs." Was any of this easy? No. Was there a period of uncertainty, of stress, of wondering if I had done the right thing? Absolutely. But sitting here now, I can tell you without hesitation, every moment of it was worth it. The day Marcus was escorted out of that building, one of my former coworkers sent me a message. Someone who had been in that room on the Tuesday morning everything happened. Someone who had watched me walk out and said nothing. The message said, "We all knew something was wrong, every single one of us. Thank you for being the one who actually did something about it." I read that message 3 times, and then I put my phone down, looked out the window, and took a very long, very slow breath. If you are listening to this right now, and you are sitting at a desk somewhere, in an office somewhere, dealing with your own version of Marcus, I want you to hear this. You are not imagining it. You are not being too sensitive. You are not the problem. Document everything. Every email, every message, every meeting, every performance review that does not add up. Every time credit is taken that belongs to you. Build your just-in-case folder and hope you never need it. Stay calm. The calmer you are, the more clearly you can see. And the more clearly you can see, the more effectively you can act. And let the evidence speak, because evidence does not have emotions. Evidence does not get nervous. Evidence does not back down. Evidence simply tells the truth. Clearly, plainly, undeniably. People like Marcus always believe they are the smartest person in the room. They believe that charm and authority are enough to protect them forever, but they always leave a trail. They always do. If this story resonated with you, if you have been there, or you are there right now, I want to hear from you. Drop a comment below. Tell me your story. Tell me what happened. Tell me how it ended, or tell me that it hasn't ended yet. And you are still in the middle of it. You are not alone. And if you want more stories like this, real stories of people who refused to stay quiet, who documented, who waited, who let the truth do what the truth always eventually does, subscribe. I put out a new story every single week. Thank you for listening. I will see you next time.